And it's just a huge, huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing the man, the legend, Matt Vogt. Dr. Matthew Vogt started his practice, the dentist at Gateway Crossing, in 2018, signing the lease the week after graduating dental school. Today, the practice has grown to a team of 9 employees and associate, becoming a pillar of the greater Indianapolis, Indiana community. In 2023, Matt Vogt joined the lifestyle practice with partners and Townies, Derek Williams and Steve Von Day, focusing on coaching and working with other dentists one-on-one to elevate their lives and careers through practice ownership while still practicing clinical dentistry himself. Outside of coaching and practicing dentistry, Matt is a competitive amateur golfer competing at the national level, recently making headlines all around the world, qualifying for the 2025 U.S. Open at Oakmont Country Club in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the course where he caddied as a high schooler and college kids. His websites are thelifestylepractice.com and the dentist@gc.com. What's at GC stand for?
At Gateway Crossing. That's kind of the neighborhood where we're at, yeah.
My gosh, what inspired you? I don't even know where to start. First, we got to get to know you. So before we talk about the golf legend himself, I think it's pretty wild that you signed the lease after graduating from dental school. And I always see all these kids where they think they need to go be an associate for 5 years. And I graduated May 11, 87, and was open September 21st, 87. And while they were doing the construction, I was working for another dental office. So, I mean, if you want to learn how to swim, you can be real lucky. I had 2 older sisters. They just shoved me in the pool, and you either drowned or swim. So what made you just go for it right out of school?
Well, so you wouldn't let me say this before we started rolling, but I built my practice based on knowledge from Dentaltown, legitimately. In dental school, I'm more of a lurker on Dentaltown to this point. I should probably be more active, but there's so much good information out there. Trent McCord's does a dental startup. It was one of the biggest, most important threads in my life, honestly, because I basically tried to copy everything that he did. So I had gotten in touch with, the way my story goes is I had actually gotten in touch with somebody via Dentaltown who was encouraging me to do a startup, and I learned a lot from this person. And then some things happened in their life where they couldn't help me after I signed this lease. So I kind of, just like you alluded to, it felt like jumping out of a plane and building the parachute on the way down.
I've never even heard of that saying. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's the best saying. But that's what it felt like, and it's just something I was always called to start a practice and own a practice. And as you mentioned, the best way to learn things oftentimes is just doing them, messing them up, and fixing it. That's what it's felt like over the years in a great way. I mean, things have grown, more than I could have wanted or ever imagined. And I truly have an awesome team and an awesome practice, and I'm very grateful for that. So that's kind of how my journey went, just jumping right into it after dental school, and here we are, gosh, a little over 7 years later now.
And how old are you?
I'm 34.
So how old were you when you started your practice?
Would have been I went to dental school right after college, so 27. I signed the lease, and then it took some time. We finally got open in spring of 18. So yeah, it took a little bit of time, but I think I was 27 or 28.
Well, hey, Dentaltown has, you're not going to believe this, it has almost 1 million different threads with 10 million posts. So will you find that thread you're talking about and just put, just bump and just post, Howard, this is the thread I was talking about on the podcast?
Yeah.
I now that I know this, I want to reread that whole thread, and it's just amazing. But, we always hear that, millennials are different, where I don't believe there's been any evolution in humans since the Roman Empire. I think in 2,000 years of evolution is nothing. It's a blink. But why do you think they're so much more cautious to just graduate from school and open it up, where, my class, I mean, just a lot of people, they didn't do it maybe in, day one, but a lot of them were just going for it. And seems like the whole class owns their own office. I mean, I don't know a single classmate from UMKC 87 that's an employee somewhere. I mean,
Yeah. So
do you think they're different or not really?
I don't know if it's a generational thing. I don't know if I can really answer that question. I don't have the timeline to see how things have unfolded in my life and my career, but I feel like I feel like there's probably a lot of different factors. There's dental schools that we really aren't, we're not being taught to own a business, run a business, be a leader. That's not a priority of dental school. Maybe there's some voices within the dental school walls that are maybe cautioning against this. I I don't know what it's like now post COVID in dental school, but I know pre COVID when I was in dental school, if you could hustle, if you could, get to know some mentors in the school, you could do a lot of clinical dentistry and really push yourself and gain experience in that way versus feeling like you needed to go into a GPR or multiple years of associateship to learn and do so. I felt I had a great experience in my school at IU, Indiana. I got to know the undergrad oral surgery director very well. We still stay in touch. And after kind of learning the ropes a bit, I would just go hang out in the oral surgery clinic and just help. This would have been when I was a fourth year then at this point, just help the third years figure out like how to pick up a handpiece, and do a surgical extraction. And so that was huge. And then having a busy associateship right off the bat, and just kind of being thrown into that while I was starting the practice was huge as well. I don't know if I don't know why some people are hesitant. I always say like if I'm trying to help somebody start or purchase or acquire and grow that practice, no matter how they choose to get into ownership, you have to do it intelligently. But at some point, again, you have to feel like you're jumping out of the plane and building the parachute on the way down. I wouldn't tell somebody, hey, ownership's always better than an associateship. Go start your own practice in Manhattan and you'll do great and everything will be awesome. You got to do it intelligently. But maybe there's some degree too of people not being willing to maybe sacrifice based on maybe where they live or what their lifestyle's like early on to be able to start or grow practice. And what I mean by that is just saying, hey, maybe I have to go to a location that I don't really 100% want to live in, or it's not where I'm from. Some people feel really tied to where they grew up. Maybe I think there's a lot of factors that go into that.
Are you married, kids, any of that stuff?
Yes, married and a 16-month-old daughter now.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's
Congratulations.
been awesome. That's a big factor too. I mean, my wife in everything I've done in my life has been a pillar of my success, if you want to call it that. I mean, when I started the practice right after dental school, she's a practicing pharmacist, and we sat down. We weren't even married at this point, and we sat down and said, "Hey, we don't know how this is going to go exactly. We're starting a brand new business, but we had a great conversation where we knew we could rely on her steady income to then, take some risks and do some things to grow the practice." And we didn't have kids at that point, and I can only imagine just having one kid now, how much busier life gets in an awesome way. I can only imagine starting a practice now with children and with other commitments. So that again lends itself to doing this and jumping into ownership sooner in life, because I still, feel extremely energetic and extremely youthful, but man, life doesn't get any simpler as the years go on, that's for sure.
Well, I think it's part of a pattern. I mean, I see people, I know people that have been dating 6 or 7 years and they haven't even moved in yet. And it's like, it's like shit or get off the pot. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I think that when you're young and dumb, that's when you jump in the pool. And God, I graduated from dental school, was open in 4 months, got married to my high school sweetheart, and had 4 boys in 60 months. And it was a crazy decade, but it all works out, and it's all the vision. But as you get older and more comfortable, like say you get out of school and you marry a girl in your class, and you're both dentists and you both work at a DSO and you're both making 150, 160, 175, and they just get in this comfort deal, and then they look at each other and think, do you think we should quit our jobs and go open up a practice? Like now they're risking 300,000 combined income, and the DSOs, a good job pays you just enough to kill all your dreams. But when you're young and dumb, and you're like, hell no, I want to get married, I want to have a family, I want to have my own practice. Okay, don't think about it. Just run and jump off that cliff, and you can build a parachute on the way down. And I'm motivating myself from those lessons, because I noticed that when you listen to the older CEOs, like say Eric Schmidt, who was the CEO of Google for 10 years, and they asked him in an interview, and my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe the answer. They said, but it was taking that job for 10 years. It looks like it really changed your life. Now you're this big name brand leader and you're consulting with other governments around the world on AI and all this stuff. And he says, what was the success? How did you get that? And he says, it's because I said yes. I asked him, I said, well, why did you pick me? And Sergeant Brady and Larry Page said the first 9 guys didn't want the job. And Eric Smith said that he knew it was scary. He knew it was over his head. He knew he was going to walk in the lines there, but he knew his whole life that when opportunity came, you can either say yes and scale yourself, or you can say no and then regret it for the rest of your life. Or like, why didn't I do that? And he says he sees all these miserable retired people on a golf course just turning into old grumpy curmudgeons, and they had all these opportunities. Even now at the golf course, some guy will say, well, why don't you jump in my company? It used to be, a senior vice president of marketing or whatever, and for some big company, and they just always say no. And he says the more they say no, the more unhappy they are. And you're, obviously you're competitive. I mean, my God, you're in the U.S. Open. And tell me about your website. thelifestylepractice.com. Tell me, which one of these 3 handsome people is you?
Well, you can see Derek and Steve there on the left or the right, whichever way you're looking at it. Then you can see me there. So that's been, there you go. You've got it pulled up.
There you go. But
yeah, we got some nice photos taken. We look cute in those, So.
Yeah. So tell me about that, and be sure to bump that thread, because now I'm going to be thinking about this interview, this, and that thread. Yep. Were elements of that thread help you form this lifestyle practice? I mean, did you get ideas from that?
Yeah. So starting my practice, like the way that the timeline's kind of grown or gone for me is, starting the practice in 2018, I hadn't played much golf to that point, in dental school after playing in college and quitting. That there's a dead period in my life of golf. So starting the practice, that's obviously an immense amount of work. And then as the practice grew, I ended up hiring Justin Short, who started the lifestyle practice. I found out about him through Dentaltown, honestly. So I hired him to help coach and consult for me, and that was one of the best things I ever did. Being an athlete growing up, and you have coaches, you need other people with their impartial opinion on what you're doing. That's just how you grow, in my opinion, or it's a great way to grow. So I hired Justin. We worked together. We honestly really clicked. And so after, we stopped working together one-on-one, we stayed in touch. And then I filled Justin's shoes as he stepped away from the lifestyle practice in 2023. And so what we do is, we help dentists elevate their lives and careers through practice ownership, talking about a lot of the things that we've already talked about here on our call today, Howard. Sometimes it's practical, it's diving into the numbers, diving into the EBITDA of a practice that we're trying to acquire, that type of thing. Sometimes it's very high level, it's very motivational leadership. How do we talk to our team members? How do we get everyone to row the boat in the same direction? That is so much of that stuff is so difficult as dentists sometimes, because it can be so isolating if you're by yourself. I mean, this is a very difficult, isolating profession if you're not careful. And so what's really struck a nerve with me and just in my life and my career is having started the practice, having seen success, and honestly having messed up a lot of things that I would do differently looking back on it. I feel a great amount of fulfillment in passing along that knowledge to others in our field. So that's the impetus of what we do at TLP. And again, it's cool to see the connections in TLP and a lot of the knowledge that I've brought to my own practice and then to clients, started with reading threads on Dentaltown. In fact, Derek, one of my partners, Derek Williams, he had started a ambitious dental students private group back in 2013, maybe 2012. And we were a part of that together, not knowing each other super personally at that point. But I mean, I don't know if I would be doing what I'm doing now without those connections through Dentaltown. So it's been really neat, and it's a fun It's a very fun balance along with still practicing dentistry to be able to help others. I'm very grateful to be able to do that.
So it says we help improve doctors' lives. We enhance patient care, deliver exceptional patient experience while streamlining practice operations. I was talking to Ryan last night. One of the funniest dinner conversations we ever had. I think my oldest boy Eric was, I think he was in like first grade, maybe second grade, and he was asked. We were talking, and he asked me what advertising was, and I was explaining it to him. He says, "Oh, so advertising is when you trick people to buy stuff." And I thought that's actually true, because the best advertising in the world is word of mouth referral. And I feel like I'm going through the second boom product of my life. I think the iPhone was the biggest consumer product launch I ever seen. I mean, you and I are too young to see Coca-Cola get launched when it had cocaine in it, or other things that really took off. But I remember, a lot of young kids that they weren't there back then, but there was the BlackBerry, there was the Nokia. Nokia was a number one phone in the world. There was the Motorola pager, and no one ever came out and said, "Man, you need to get a BlackBerry," or "Man, these Nokias rock." God, how come you don't have a pager? Every doctor and drug dealer in America has a pager. No one ever said that. And then I remember that iPhone came out, and the first year it came out, you couldn't download apps on it. It didn't have any USB or any the attachments that everybody wanted. Everybody was saying the product, the press was saying everything that was wrong with it. And I remember we were getting into my car, and the staff, we were going to drive 1 mile down the street to a Mexican restaurant for lunch, and my assistant has a heart attack. So stop, I forgot my phone. And I'm like, "What?" And we stop, and she runs in there like the house is on fire, and comes back out. And it was that iPhone. And everybody that had the iPhone, I mean, patient after patient after patient would just say, "My God, I love my iPhone." And I'm thinking, okay, no one ever said that about Nokia. No one ever said, I mean, what is it about this phone? And then it turned into a $3 trillion company. I see the same thing, only the second time in my life, with ChatGPT from OpenAI. I mean, I can't talk to my neighbor without, I asked ChatGPT and it said blah, 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 blah. And then everyone's saying that. I mean, you're at the grocery store. I mean, people just, it's crazy. You hear them in the aisles asking ChatGPT, what's the healthiest black olives at Safeway? And a voice is telling you, well, you don't want the stuffed olives, you want the pitted olives, and the best brand at Safeway for the most nutrition, and other people are listening in on this ChatGPT call, and it's just crazy. So I think that before you start thinking about marketing and advertising and all that stuff, that you just need to crush the new patient experience. And every time they come in, you're running for mayor. You might be an introvert, you might be in a bad mood, you might be tired, but it's showtime, baby, and you're running for mayor. How you doing, Matt? God, it's great to see you. And so talk about when you talk. So explain what you're teaching them on enhanced patient care, deliver exceptional patient experiences while streamlining practice operations. And notice he started off with that and decrease stress, not marketing, how to make a Facebook page that will make your office get 10 new patients a day, which I think is a joke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's so customized. I can give you a couple good examples. I had a client who recently started a practice, was doing very well. And basically we got to, in talking and getting to know each other very intimately, we found out that he was basically afraid to do root canals. And I'm like, okay, that is something that I guess in theory, you don't have to do root canal if you don't want to for a patient, if you really hate them that much. But I know you know how to do root canals. I can help you figure out how to do a good job. I mean, I do a decent amount of molar root canals in my practice. I'm no endodontist, but it's something that is an important part of taking care of patients and enhancing their patient experience. Because if someone comes in pain, I should pretty much know how to do molar RCT and crown, or extraction and eventual implant. Like, it's really nice to be able to provide those services to, again, Howard, kind of be the mayor of your practice and say, hey, I'm here to take care of you no matter which way you choose, or no matter which way we need to do that. So this client in this case was basically just gun shy to do a root canal. So he needed a kick in the pants. He needed a clinical review of like how to do a good root canal and how to talk to patients about it confidently, even though he hadn't done a root canal since since dental school and he had been a few years removed. So simply like getting someone to understand the importance of that, or helping them to understand the importance of that, to be able to accomplish all these things we just talked about. I mean, now he's doing that regularly. So if a patient comes in pain, he doesn't have to be thinking, well, okay, I can do this extraction, and but if he needs a root canal, then I need to send him to the endodontist, and then he has to come back for this. Like it gets very messy, and his practice. That's one of those things that I love when I can help someone make a change that helps everybody. It helps the patient, it helps the dentist get more fulfillment, and it helps revenue in the practice. It's literally a great thing for everyone. So that's where like a patient-centered approach can be really great. And you, like you said, it's not. Yes, it's important to look at the metrics of a practice. It's important to look at overhead. We want everything to be in line. We want to minimize overhead, and we want to grow production ethically in a practice if we're working hard. We want to feel the fruits of our labor in our business, but it's just not always about. You have to get outside the spreadsheet. You have to get to really think about the emotional intelligence that you're bringing to the practice every day, whether that's with patients or with team members. That's probably the most important thing I'd say to success and ownership is, like you said, being the mayor, knowing how to interact and talk with people on a regular basis, to grow the practice, grow new patient numbers, create great experiences, keep your team members around, make sure they enjoy coming to work every day. That's one of the most important things in my book.
Yeah, and I want to remind the kids that some people say, well, you're not a real dentist or you're a fake dentist or whatever. Let me tell you what a dentist is, going all the way back to G.B. Black. They come to you in pain and they give you a coin. And Pierre Fauchard started this with him saying, okay, we're not going to shave hair and beards and do boots and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to be dental surgeons. We're not going to be dental surgeons and barbers. And dentistry is always, I come to you, I give you my own coin, not my employer's or the insurance, and you get me out of pain. And that's from an extraction or a root canal. And if someone comes to you in pain and you can't do that, you're not a dentist. When you say, oh, I'm sorry, you're in pain, but I mean, how would you like to break your leg and go to the hospital and say, oh, we do arms and fingers and ears, but we don't do legs. We're so sorry. Yeah, you need to find a real hospital that can do it. You're a dentist. If you can't wiggle out that tooth or do a root canal, I mean, I'm not saying you have to extract a tooth, then place an implant, but if it's harder to extract a tooth than it is to place an implant, it's kind of like saying, well, I did fine in the third grade, but I'm afraid of the second grade. It's like, what? You already did the third grade. If you can't pull a tooth and insert the implant right then, if there's not pus and you get enough, if it's tight enough and you can, pack around it. But if you can't pull a tooth and place the implant, or you can't do a root canal, you need to go back to school. Maybe you didn't want to be an endodontist. Maybe you should have played. I mean, Tom Murphy, he takes kids all over the world into jungles and where they'll pull 50, 60, 70 teeth in 3 days. I mean, I took my boys all pulled teeth down in Mexico before. I think, did you pull a tooth before you jet skied, or which came first? I mean, you got to be serious. And some of these people where they just want to be bleaching, bonding, veneer, cosmetic dentists, or things like that, they got wiped out in COVID. I remember talking to a lot of dentists around here, and I say, well, just do general dentistry. And they're like, man, I haven't done a root canal. I haven't done a denture or a partial, or, I just, what they were doing is they were doing $50,000 cases in North Scottsdale where you come in, they take everything out and they'd replace everything with Empress, inlays, onlays, crowns, veneers, or whatever. And you'd walk out with a $50,000 beautiful smile. And it was gorgeous. And they did it for 10 years. But remember, if you give a poor person $1, they always part with their money. I mean, a man, what is the saying? A man and a fool, a fool and $1 will always part ways.
Easily parted, something like that.
Easily parted.
Yeah.
And rich people, my God, rich people, they don't part their money. In fact, the I practiced for 30, 40 years right here up the street, Ahwatukee, and across the street is the Guadalupe Indian Reservation with, like 15,000 very low income people, a lot of dirt floors, all that. I never had one billing issue or someone not pay me. If they said, well, I'll give you $20 every payday for the next 3 months, they would come in and give you a $20. I mean, not one in all those decades. But where I lived up the street, the other direction, the Equestrian Center, was all $1 million houses. Oh my God, it finally got to be where my office manager say, oh, they're from the Equestrian Center, and she pulled up in a Mercedes, so it'll be full payment in full, because rich people don't part with their money. That they just got to be a dentist. They got to get people out of pain. They can't lose their skills. If you just turn into a cosmetic dentistry, and then the economy falls apart, and all that kind of stuff. So the next thing you talk about is decrease stress, leadership training to help you do less and your team do more. Dental Town's 25 years old. And I've watched the mood, and it was really neat lecturing, because, the law of unintended consequences, when I accepted my first invitation to speak, I had zero idea that in the next 30 years I'd lecture in 50 countries, many of them 5 or more times. But when it was flying around the world, that was the first time I realized, wow, the whole planet's one beehive. If they're all mad anywhere on the beehive, the whole beehive's mad, and they're all settled down, or they're all mad. Political, swings, they were all going to the right, then they all went to the left, and now they're going back to the right. I mean, war, peace. I mean, it's one single hive. And right now, the dentists are pissed. Oh my God, they're mad at the ADA. The ADA can't do anything right. They hate Delta Dental. They can't do anything right. The DSOs are all bad. And I remember when I got to school, it was the capitation, it was the HMOs, and I remember, but right now they are at a probably not as stressed as COVID. That was 5 years ago, but man, they're not happy campers. On Dental Town, there's more people that just want to strangle Delta than the ADA, and then DSOs. They probably kill 5 people before breakfast if they could, to do it and get away with it. So when you see stress, decrease stress, what are your thoughts on it? What is your diagnostic? How is your lifestyle, the lifestylepractice.com, how does that help people with stress?
So I think a big part of kind of what you were talking about previously is, again, just developing emotional intelligence to connect with team members is a huge thing. It's a huge low-hanging fruit for a lot of dentists. And a lot of the time, learning how to do that also helps you to connect with patients to create great patient outcomes. An example in my office is, it's really easy for team members and dentists, if you're not careful, to get stressed out about a patient who's, a difficult case, or they're angry, or they're fussy, or whatever it is, right? And I have to constantly remind my team and clients too that dentistry, it's okay for people to not want to come to the dentist. Like, that's fine. What we do is not fun, but you can do certain things to make that experience great for people. And a lot of the time that stress comes, I feel like that stress for dentists comes from team members maybe not doing the things that we want them to do or expect them to do, or patient experience is not going the way that we expect. So it often just takes, in my mind, it takes a reframe of your mindset of, okay, I'm not just a dentist who's going in to do dentist things. I think it's really easy to get caught up on the jargon and the see problem, fix problem aspect of dentistry versus actually getting to know every single patient and what their goals are. It's emotional intelligence. So what problem does this person think that they have? Or what are they looking to accomplish by sitting in this chair today? Is a question that I often think to myself when I'm practicing. And they didn't just walk into my office like by accident and decide to sit there for fun. So they are there for a reason. It could be longevity. It could be to look better, to feel better. It could be for their confidence. It could be anything. But finding out what the patient's goals are is incredibly, incredibly important. And then helping them to understand if they have issues or if they have a problem. It might not be pain, like you mentioned, Howard. It could be that their occlusion's all jacked up, and that doesn't hurt them necessarily until years down the road. But how do we help that patient understand that they have an issue that we can help with, and do they want to fix that issue to help accomplish their goals? So you've got to start in that area first before you before you start to jump in again to all the dentisting and the jargon that we just love to kind of throw at people as dentists. And then I take the same viewpoint as far as decreasing stress goes. I take the same viewpoint in how we're working with our team members. I think I look at my team, and I'm certainly not perfect by any means. I learn something every day, but I look at my team and I think when I see them, how can I make this place a great place for this person to work? I have expectations for them. I have very high expectations, but my main goal is how can I be a great leader? I think the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink is one of the best books you could ever read. And basically
Extreme Ownership by who?
Jocko Willink.
Oh, the motivational speaker.
Jocko, yeah.
Oh yeah. But I got 4 boys and 2 of them eat every word he says. So,
yeah. So it's great. And the very, very short synopsis of that book is you're owning everything in your life. You may have not caused it to happen, but at the end of the day, it's your problem if it's in your life, right? You might have started off on a different foot than someone else, but you've got to own it. So in this case, your team's not doing what you want them to do. Maybe you're stressed out, you're burnt out. Who knows what it is in dentistry, but it's your problem. Own it. Don't make excuses. And not to get super in the weeds here, but it's really easy for people in general and dentists to make excuses for a lot of the things that go on in their practices or with their teams or with their lives. And honestly, we'd all be better served just to own it. Just own it and say, okay, this happened. This is a fact. Now, what do I do going forward to improve on this? So I think that mindset shift, it's easy. It's very easy in practice to say, do this, or I'm sorry, easy in theory, to say, do this and you'll decrease stress and feel better, but harder in practice. And so that's something I really enjoy helping people with because again, there's so many parallels to golf in this case, which is, I know one of the reasons that we're talking in that, you've got to own every single aspect of what happens to you on the golf course. It might not be good, but oftentimes you have to accept what's happened to you and just move forward with what's the next step. How do I go forward from here? And even that just simple mindset helps in business in this case. So that helps to decrease stress for sure. And then I think a big part of decreasing stress as a practice owner and as a dentist is, do we have a successful practice? Like, are we not worrying or sweating bills and payroll? Do we have a successful practice? And if that's the case, I think stress goes down and I think patient care increases as well. Yeah, there's your guy, Jocko.
That's who you're talking about, right?
Yeah. I found, starting a practice from scratch, day one, first patient, you're like, oh my gosh, this patient has a fractured amalgam and I really, really need them to do this crown because otherwise I don't have a patient today. Right? Like that's kind of how the mindset is early on. And if you can create a successful practice, I found my mindset I feel like I've become a better dentist as my practice has grown because I am even more impartial to helping patients accomplish whatever they want to accomplish and helping them get healthy. Not to say I would push people, to complete dentistry necessarily on day one or early on in my scratch startup, but you definitely feel that stress as a business owner when something like that happens. So there's lots of ways to improve on stress in the lives of dentists.
Here's his 10 best quotes. I love this guy. Greg's always sending him. And Zach, discipline equals freedom. Get after it. There is no growth in the comfort zone. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level you're training. Good. His philosophy of turning every obstacle into a positive. Extreme ownership. Leaders must own everything in their world. There is no one else to blame. If you want to be tougher, be tougher. Ego clouds and disrupts everything. Default aggressive. The more you practice, the better you get, the more freedom you have to create. And you know what? One of the things that I've noticed is, I've told a lot of people, even some of my kids, they'll say something about themselves. It's like, dude, you would never say that to your kid. Why are you saying something to yourself that you wouldn't say to your 5-year-old? Well, I mean, you wouldn't tell your 5-year-old, well, I don't know, I'm just, and all this negative talk. And I really believe that it's all the self-talk. I mean, like he says, his reaction to any problem, good.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. Not to jump in, but like,
yeah,
I play in the U.S. Open. I shoot 1,000,000, right? I did not play well. If I had played well at the Open, I think I could have probably made the cut. Like that was kind of my ceiling if I had played really, really, really well, but I didn't. I finished, 5th or 6th from last. Again, an incredible achievement, but I could have looked at that experience and said, well, I blew it. This is my moment to make an even bigger impact in my life, or, the things that could have come from this had I made the cut and all these things. I could have had that mindset. And yeah, I'm bummed that it didn't go exactly how I would have wanted it to, but in a way, in my mind, you either win or you learn in life and in sport. And in Jocko's case, he responds to that with good. Oh, you didn't play well in the U.S. Open? Good. You'll be ready for the next experience. What did you learn from it? Your hygienist quits on the spot today? Good. You can learn from this. What's next? I love that reframe, because it's so easy, and as you run into so many people and so many dentists over the years, it's easy to tell when someone has the right mindset in this way, and it's easy to tell when someone has the wrong mindset. You can call it excuse making, you can call it complaining, you can call it whatever, or you can sense when somebody has that resilience, that understanding that dentistry, entrepreneurship, golf, whatever it is legitimately a lifetime learning experience, and you have to look at it that way. Or else you are going to just live on this roller coaster of every day. If something good happens to you, you're happy. If something bad happens to you, you're sad, you're stressed. And what a miserable way to go through life. So that's where Jocko, I think, that he says it so simply. Good. It's such a freeing mindset to do that.
So I want you to just, before we go on, I want you to sit there and say, okay, I know several people right now, and they're working for a DSO. And by the way, that mindset, I mean, some people work for DSO and they're like, I hate this. But no one likes to be dependent on, no one wants a boss. They all want to be independent. They all want to be born wealthy. I mean, obviously, and it's all mindset. And I noticed that these people that work for a DSO, they change jobs every year. So 5 years out of school, they've had 5 jobs. And then I see this other group of people that work for DSO for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And they're like, well, God, everybody struggles to run one office. Well, I work for Rick Workman of Heartland, and he runs 1,000 offices. I've got to be able to learn something from that. I mean, and they just study everything. And then they always walk out with like their best team member. It's like, they found like the best office manager. They're exposed to this organization with 1,000 offices and regional managers. Then after 5 years, they sit there and say, well, I'm taking Susie. She's the best office manager, and Sally's the best assistant. And man, we got this. And they're all positive, and they love their experience. They even tell Rick what their plans are, and Rick's cheering them on. I mean, he's not a zero-sum game. He knows that if Rick was working for Rick would eventually want to break off and start Heartland Dental too. I mean, he's not a fool, and he's in your backyard, close to you, and it's all attitude. And my gosh, you just see people. I'll give you another example. When COVID was done, all these local dentists coming out of AT Still and Midwestern, they were telling me stuff like, I didn't even do one pulpotomy in dental school. So then and I only did 2 canals of endo, and they were on a block, extracted too. And I'd call them back and say, hey, dude, good news. I know a friend who's got a Medicaid clinic in South Phoenix, and it's just all Medicaid, and they'll pay you $300 a day, and you can probably do 15 toothache kids. And I'm not working for that fee schedule. I mean, how much would my fee schedule? I was like, dumbass, you graduated $500,000 in debt going to dental school, and you never did a pulpotomy, and now I come to you, and you can get paid $300 a day and do 15 of them in a day. And I'm just thinking, and I be up front. I mean, I am I'm not a nice guy. I'm not your friend. I'm trying to be your coach. And I just sit there and say, that's the dumb. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. Are you lazy? Are you dumb? Are you stupid? Are you entitled? What is wrong with your attitude? You know, I wish your dad was there and would take his belt off right now and beat you all the way to that dental office. So you can just smell it. And the other thing I noticed in all those years, that every dental student that left Midwestern AT Skill, just out of curiosity, saw my podcast, Dental Town, whatever, and we just, you know, they had an hour and they just drove by and they just wanted to see it, and they'd walk in there and ask around and they just want to see it and shake your hand. I've got to see those people for 10, 20 years afterwards. They all went straight to the top. It's all attitude. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it was our parenting. My mom always told me, you know, my two older sisters left high school, went straight to the nunnery, and my mom always told me, she says, Howie, you are so smart. You're going to be the first American Pope. And I just like, really? Really? And every time I saw
you could be the second in theory, I guess, but
I didn't make it. The guy from Chicago did. But the thing is, I don't know if it's parenting, and, you know, and my dad had all those one-liners. He's like, well, if you think you can or you think you can't, you already decided. I mean, you know, it was always like, just go do it. My mom was the original, just do it. Shut up and just do it. Go, go, go. And any of my sisters say, well, I don't know if I'll make the volleyball team because I'm so short. Get out there, learn how to jump, so what would you say to those dentists that you just talk to that dentist? He's at a DSO. She hates it. She wants out. She wants to start her own practice, but she's smart as hell, and she's thinking of everything that could go wrong. And I don't want to make her miss her window. And now I don't even think there is a window, because I totally rebuilt my company at 60. I decided I was going to burn down Dental Town and rebuild it from scratch, and we're 18 months into it. And it's like the funnest project I've ever done in my life. But talk to that girl. She works at a DSO. She hates it. She wants her own place. And she talks to herself in a way that she would never talk to her child. And she's her own worst enemy. Fear. Mm-hmm. Talk to that girl.
Fear, but I would ask that person, why do you hate it? Like, first off, why do you hate working for a DSO? Is it truly the DSO that's causing all of this, you know, strife in your career and in your life? Because DSOs get such a bad rap, but you know, I've been a part of them when starting out fresh out of school. Like, I worked for a DSO, and yeah, there were some things that I hated about it, but there were some things that I learned and said, like, they do this pretty well, actually. They have to know how to do some things at least decently well. You know, like, so I feel like, yes, I'm very neutral on that topic, but I think I would first ask that person, and that girl in this case, why do you hate it? And what's going to change when you become an owner? Because there have been people that, you know, we get a gazillion emails and comments, you know, from people listening to our podcast. A lot of people are not owners yet, or they might be in dental school. And there have been people that I've actually just encouraged to pump the brakes and say, hey, like, maybe you need to learn and grow a little bit before you become an owner. And have the right mindset about things. But in that case, I think so much of, like you said, so much of this is your mindset and your self-image and your self-talk a lot of the time, and just believing in finding ways in which things can go right instead of finding ways that things can go wrong. Is a very good skill to have in life, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of growth to be able to do that. I'll use golf as an example. You know, something weird happened over the last few years. I mean, I work hard at golf when I'm not and at my practice, when I'm not working with clients. It's a massive part of my life, and it's very easy on the golf course to look at a shot that's difficult and think, oh, I could shank this into the water over here. Oh, I could screw this up, and everyone's going to laugh at me, and, you know, care about what everybody thinks. Or you can think, there's a massive opportunity here to do something cool or do something very well. So I went and played in this US Open qualifier, and I've worked so hard on this mindset over the years, and something clicked where all I could think about that day, that 36-hole day a month ago before qualifying for the US Open, was really just thinking about what could go right in the scenario. There wasn't fear. There wasn't, much trepidation. There were excited nerves, but I was thinking about what could go right. And a big part of that, I think, Howard, is giving yourself permission to quote unquote fail and not care what others might think, or have the resilience to not put yourself down when that happens. If you are so concerned about screwing up something and trying to do something perfect, find the perfect practice, the perfect location, be perfectly ready to be an owner or a leader of a team, you're never going to do it, because there's never going to be a perfect time. And honestly, I think a huge part of that is just not caring what other people may think, not being afraid to mess things up. And we keep going back to it, but like, at some point you do have to jump out of the plane and build your parachute on the way down. When it comes to clinical dentistry, you made a great point. There are ways to learn and grow in dentistry, especially as a young dentist, while still taking great care of people. In my scenario, I signed the lease on my practice. We're getting construction going, and I'm working in an associateship for 9 or 10 months or so. And I worked at a clinic very similar to what you described. It was a largely Medicaid clinic here in Indiana. Lots of patients that are just on Medicaid, and oftentimes they would come to me with a bombed out tooth. And in a private practice setting, that tooth probably has two routes. It's endo core crown, or it's extraction and implant. And in these scenarios, these patients weren't going to be able to go to an endodontist to get a root canal done. I guess they could probably go to an oral surgeon, but a lot of them, after having a conversation with me, said, "Hey, I understand that this tooth has a terrible prognosis, but I understand that there is a bit of a Hail Mary shot here to do a root canal and try to save this tooth with a massive composite. Can you do that for me, doc?" Like, yes, I can do that. Ethically, I can do that. If we can't restore this tooth, if the decay's too large, if we perf the tooth while we're trying to access the canals, then we'll have to change our plans. As long as you're okay with that, then yeah, let's give it the best shot. And that was a great way for me to learn as a dentist, to not have this fear of messing up, I guess, and to also create good outcomes for patients. But that takes a certain mindset. It takes being open to being in a practice setting like that, to be able to experience that growth. So I think finding a position like that, if you're a young, hungry dentist and you want to try to learn and grow very quickly, and maybe you can't do that in dental school, finding a way to do that in private practice, or with a very, very clinically focused GPR or mentorship or something like that is a great way to go. But it's not just going into a slow position, whether it's private practice or DSO, and doing class 2 fillings and crowns, and that's it. Like that just seems like a slow slog of a start to your career, and something that's not really going to help you grow.
And another thing, I want to talk about what your consulting practice focus on, the lifestyle practice. But, when I got out of school, there were different oral surgeons and specialists, and you can always find a specialist that will help you. It's not a zero-sum game. They always think, well, the endodontist wants to do all the root canals. He would never help me. That's not true at all. You could go, I could go to the best endodontist in town, Jason Hale, Brad Gettleman, and you could sit with them and assist them. They'd show you everything they know. And they want to help you. And yeah, you're going to do the anteriors, you're going to do some molars, but they know they're going to get some complex cases and retreats and all this stuff like that. Same thing with oral surgeons. I told oral surgeons that, I send them to you. You pull 4 wisdom teeth. You max out their $1,000 deductible, and I don't see them for a year. So when I send you a patient, I went back to the fax. I'm going to fax you the treatment plan, and I need a doctor, an oral surgeon, to go in there and say, hey, you've got these 6 cavities. We send them the treatment plan and x-rays, thing diagnosed. You got 6 cavities, and they're like $250. You got 4 cavities. Easy math. You got 4 cavities, and that's 4 $250 fillings. And if you don't get those fixed, those are going to turn in. You're going to be back here for 4 more extractions because you won't be able to afford a $2,000 root canal buildup and crown. So I'm pulling your wisdom teeth, but you need to go back to Dr. Farran. You know, if they weren't going to review the treatment plan, we weren't going to do the specialist. If I couldn't go in there, and like I'd call him up and I'd say to Don Gas, I'd say, you know, I don't have any patients Thursday. You know, when someone says, well, you don't even have a patient till 10. Good. Not whine and cry and throw in the towel and roll over in bed. It's like, good, I'm going to run to the oral surgeon and I'm going to watch 2 hours of extractions because he's Beethoven and I'm playing with my elbows, you know, and the endodontist, a pediatric, everybody want to help you. But I want to ask you on your lifestyle practice, at thelifestylepractice.com. What is your target customer? I mean, are you really prefer, because I see free practice assessment. So are you targeting mostly people that are already running an office, or are you coaching people who are startup mind, or what is your favorite customer? What's your McDonald's sells a Big Mac, fry and a Coke. What's your Big Mac, fry and a Coke?
Oh, I like that. I like the way you phrase that. I would say the practice that I love to work with, the Big Mac and Coke, would be someone who just got into ownership and understands, okay, I can improve. I want to improve. I know I can become a better dentist and a better owner. How do I do that? And they come to me or come to us at TLP for help. That's an awesome place to start. I would say, in addition to that, one of the reasons that I came on was to fill a void with startup practices, because Derek and Steve, they both acquired their practices and did very well in growing them. Same with Justin. But just knowing the extra steps, the mindset, and honestly, the type of person and like and headspace it takes to start a practice is it's very different than acquiring a practice, in my opinion. So I work with a lot of future practice owners who are starting practices as well. So I'd say those are the two main things, but mainly those dentists who have just purchased a practice or are in their practices and they say, you know what, I know that I can improve. I know that I don't have all the answers and I want help with this, and I want to do it faster than if I could do it on my own. And then I love getting in touch too with people who are pre-owners. I really enjoy helping dentists figure out, okay, where in the startup sense, where do I start a practice? Where do I even begin? Or do I want to start a practice? Do I want to acquire a practice? How do I think that through? And being impartial in that opinion is very helpful. I really enjoy helping people find the right first step for them and helping them find and analyze practices that might be available, but also, just as important, avoiding the pitfalls of either starting a practice in the wrong spot or doing it the wrong way, or acquiring a practice that honestly, you might have been better off being an associate for a while longer and looking for a better practice to acquire. So I'd say that's our bread and butter for sure.
And what would you say is the biggest reason they're calling you? Because I'm reading all your questions, fill out, it was good. I mean, it's a great psychic graphic. I remember coming in, starting my practice in 87, and I didn't see one dentist on the chart with a psychographic question. They were all asking, like, what is your height, your weight, your blood pressure? Did you ever have herpes, AIDS, or gonorrhea? All this stuff. It's like, what did you like the most about any dental office you've gone to? What have you liked the least about any dental office? What are you expecting to have done today? And if they say, well, I know you need to pull this tooth and add it to the partial. Great, I know where I'm starting. I mean, I need to know what you're thinking. Yeah, I might talk her into something else or whatever, but I just need to know what you're thinking. When they said, what do you like the most about your last office? He had nitrous oxide. And I can't tell you, I know endodontists in this town that don't have nitrous oxide. I mean, what are you? I was born on Earth. They were born on Uranus. I mean, it's just like, how could you think like that? I even chewed out some of the emergency rooms. My boys were always going to the emergency room, and I remember one time they were pulling out saguaro cactus splinters on one of my boys, and he's crying for like half an hour. I'm like, well, why don't you have some nitrous oxide, or why can't they're just nothing? But I need to know what these people are thinking. So, what are they thinking when they call you? What's psychically going into their mind? I mean, I doubt they're calling you up and saying, well, I'm only getting 9 new patients a month and I want 12. I mean, what's What's the energy behind going to the lifestylepractice.com and filling out this questionnaire?
The energy is almost always a analysis paralysis situation. It's I maybe they have a practice already, maybe they're looking to purchase one, and it's just that I don't know the next step to accomplish my goals. That's the biggest thing. And some people don't really know their goals. They don't know what's possible. And helping fellow dentists flesh that out again is a very rewarding thing because I want people to understand what's possible in their careers. You can have a great practice. You can take great care of your team members, and you can have time outside the office to do the things you want to do. But like you can have time to let your practice and your life mesh together. And that is possible. A lot of people might think that's not possible, but it is. And don't get me wrong, if you want to do extraordinary things in your life, you've got to take extraordinary measures. And if you're saying yes to one thing in your life, or you're saying, yes, I want to be a great practice owner, a great family man, and be a competitive golfer in my instance, you're going to have to say no to a lot of other things. It's going to require a lot of sacrifice, not just on your part, but on the part of the people around you. Like in my case, my family and my wife. I've already talked about her in our conversation today. So that's a very common mindset that people come to us with. It's like, I don't know what way to go next, but I have a feeling that there's more out there for me. And when I get somebody like that in my inbox, oh man, I'm ready to run through a wall. So I'm like, if you're ready to discover what's possible in your life and you want more out of your practice and your career and your life, then let's go. That's when I get really excited, honestly.
So I want to ask you, I can't believe it's already been an hour and we should wrap it up soon because when people, even though the most views I ever got on a podcast was Carl Mish and it was 3.5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
But,
I'm not Carl Mish, but
I mean, who's got 3.5 hours? Well, like 30,000 dentists did. But I want to ask you some really, really controversial questions. I don't want to get you in trouble or throw you under a bus or whatever, but my whole career, I've heard, people don't like insurance companies. They want to set their own fee. I think if dentists had it their way, they charge $1 million for a crown. They do one every year on January 1st at 8 o'clock, and then they go home for the rest of the year. Of course, they want the most amount of money for the least amount of time because they're humans. No one likes checks and balances, but when you don't have it in government, when you don't have an executive and a judicial and a legislative branch, you get absolute power corrupts, absolutely. They don't like that at all. And so for the whole time I've been out of school, they've hated insurance companies. They've always been out the ADA, and they should be about the ADA because they live in the oldest democracy in the world, and it's a good old boys club. There's no open election. There's no process, and they flip every leader on in 1 year. So by the time the new leader gets there, what could you do in 1 year? What could you do? I mean, political scientists say that it's the 6-year term for a president is the best. Just one time, 6 years, our 4 years, all they try to do is get reelected. They spend their first 4 years trying to get reelected the second 4 years. Then if you said one term, 6 years, shut the hell up, do what you want to do and get out of there. And insurance, I mean, market segment, they segment on price. I see Medicare practices and their patients love it and they need it. I mean, if you live in Guadalupe and you push, a weed eater for $20 cash under the table an hour, you can't go get a $50,000 all on four. You know what I mean? And Delta Dental, I mean, God, what is it? Like 94% of all practices participate with Delta, yet all these threads, the most romantic threads on Dental Town is I dropped Delta Dental, So just talk about insurance. Can you be a successful dentist and take Medicare? Can you be one and take Delta Dental? If they call you on the lifestyle practice, a lot of people, the most fear they have on getting consultants, I just want to make one thing about consultants.
Sure.
The biggest fear people have in consultants is that I'm going to hire you, then you're going to come in and drop all my insurance plans. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. I'm in Beeville, Tech, whatever. And here's what I want to tell you kids about something that I figured out straight out of the gate. Every time I went to a practice manager course, they were always filling out this deal to get AGD credit or whatever. And I'm like, what, why do you even care? You know, what, blah, blah, blah. And I noticed that it was always the AGD people at every course in Phoenix. I mean, anybody could come. They could lecture on upside down extracted teeth thrown in a coffee pot, and the same 100 dentists would show up, and the older ones all had their FAGD, MAGD, and so I did that, and I got my FAGD, MAGD, but I noticed that you can't get your FAGD and not be financially successful, and you can't get your MAGD without being a baller, and it's a 1-to-1 correlation. The guy's taken 100 hours a year their whole career. Yeah, they drive a lot nicer car than you. They only do the type of dentistry they want to do, and they've all gone to France and Spain and all that kind of stuff. And it's the same thing with consultants. And the guy who spelled out most of me was Jerome Smith in Lafayette. I mean, just the most perfect practice. In fact, Sandy Perdue is is an outstanding consultant. She said it's the only practice she's ever seen that was perfect. And what he told
I love Sandy. I've learned a lot from Sandy's posts over the years. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he said, you know, every year I'll hire a consultant, and I know it's going to cost a pretty penny. And every year, I always get that penny back and more. I mean, if you really think a third party can't come into your big old team in Lafayette, Louisiana, and find one problem and fix it, and that's going to make everything faster, easier, higher quality, lower price. And the only time I think Jerome didn't get a consultant when he couldn't find one he hadn't had. And I kept seeing that over and over. Like, I'd ask these successful practices, I'd say, well, did you ever get a consultant? And he goes, did I ever get a consultant? I don't even know of a consultant I haven't had. I mean, dude, I've been practicing 20 years. I bet I've had a dozen consultants. So I started doing that. I remember the first consultant I hired, back then the computer was, Intel had a 286. And when they come and it was soft dent. And have you ever even heard of soft dent?
Yes, I have. Wow. I've never used it, obviously, but I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, and this consultant came in and she said, well, I'll teach your practice, and everybody said she was the best consultant. I said, well, I don't want you to teach my staff. I mean, I want to hire Michael Jordan. Everybody tells me that you're the greatest soft dent consultant. And her name was Sandy Wilkinson. And I said, I'd just soon hire you. I don't want you to train my staff. I want to hire you. And she laughed and she said, you couldn't afford me. And I said, why? How much would it be? And she told me, and I thought, God damn, that's a lot of money. But I said, that's, you know, if you want Michael Jordan, you're going to have to pay Michael Jordan. And she said, are you serious? And I said, yeah, I'm dead serious. I said, I don't want you coming in here training less skilled, less smart. I mean, you're the Michael Jordan of this stuff. And that was the best decision. And she was way too much money. At the time I hired her, we were just collecting, south of 100, whatever. And she grew it. I mean, I think she single-handedly grew me from 1 million to 2. I mean, just one person. And it's the same thing when you're leaving Heartland or you're working at a DSO, whatever. They got their Slandies. There's people that work for them. And if you befriend them and start going to lunch and picking their brains, you find out we have the same values. We have the same drive. And they'll poach their Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and they'll go start up their own team. So that's amazing how done. But you got to take 100 hours a year. You have to take every consultant. And let me tell you, dentistry is such a small world. If you gave Matt $1 and you did this, and then you lost 50 cents, well, it'd be on every Dental Town post, Yelp review. I mean, it's such a small world that if you see a consultant in dentistry and they're still alive 5 years later, 10 years later, they're obviously doing something right. And then you know your own practice and you know there's a lot of things going wrong, but you're just afraid to make a damn decision and saying, oh, well, of course. Professional athletes, how many of them have a personal trainer?
It's everybody. It's legitimately everybody.
It's everybody but my homie. I know who you are, and you're listening to me right now, and you've never had a personal trainer. You've never had a consultant, and you just want to get up every day and bitch about Delta Dental and the ADA and DSO. Oh, yeah, Rick Workman ruined dentistry. He didn't sit there. Yeah, the American Dental Association. I mean, they're your problem. It's the DSOs. It's the ADA. It's Delta Dental. Oh, yeah, if it wasn't for Delta Dental, you'd have the most perfect practice on earth. No, dude, it's freaking you, and call Matt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my outlook on this is, you had asked, you had mentioned that people who aren't sure about coaching and consulting think that people are going to tell them they're going to fit them into a box a lot of the time. Okay, I'm going to come in with a binder and I'm going to read your team this binder and that's how we're going to intake new patients or change your patient experience or whatever it is. We're going to tell you to drop insurances, all that 9 yards. And so one of my favorite parts about what I do is honestly the first call I have with a lot of people. And this goes back to the emotional intelligence discussion that we had earlier on our call here. The first call I have is often just saying, what do you want? Like, what do you want out of your life, out of your career? And I want you to be honest with me because why wouldn't you? You know, you're paying me, but I'm impartial. I don't care what you want. This is all about you. And I have people who, they want to practice 3 days a week and run a true lifestyle practice like we've coached a lot of dentists to do over the years. They might want to grow their practice to add an associate so they can cut back and become a 2-doctor practice. I work with a lot of dentists who are trying to do that since I've done it myself. I have dentists who want to acquire multiple practices or they want to, lasso bulls more in their free time. I had a guy an awesome dentist who likes to do that and wanted to do more of that after he got his startup grown the way he wanted to. So it's the biggest key for me in helping people is figuring out what exactly they want. And oftentimes, or sometimes, they don't know what they want or they don't know what's possible. And so we can really flesh that out together to outline what it is we want and what's possible. Because once you define, I think starting with the end in mind for your dental practice, whether that's your retirement, whether that's the sale of your practice, what does that look like? What do you envision the end looking like? If you work backwards from there, you can do something amazing versus just looking at the very present tense and bitching and moaning about all that stuff you talked about in the dental industry and making excuses. It's just, I feel like you're going to get stuck in neutral a lot of the time. So that is one of the most rewarding parts of what I do. And I found that, I always get skeptical when I'm being bombarded with Instagram ads or when I'm hearing, other coaches and consultants talking about anything. It could be dentistry. It's usually outside of dentistry, something popping up on my social media. And I always get leery when I see people acting like they've got the magic bullet, the magic solution, that they're perfect, they have all the answers, and you should pay them to tell you those secrets. And I've realized in my life, both as a dentist and as a coaching consultant, I do not have the magic bullet. That's not what I'm all about, again, as a dentist or as a coach, but helping people find solutions for what they're trying to accomplish while utilizing my expertise is what I found works really, really well for people. And it's not trying to say, okay, thanks for signing up. This is our first call, and here's your checklist of things that you need to do to run a successful practice and to be happy and less stressed. Sure, there are some things that I would say are non-negotiables. Like if you're not doing these things in your practice, in my opinion, if you're not coding correctly, if you're not doing XYZ, you need to change that. If you're not trying to, manage your overhead in a certain way right off the bat, we've got to change some things a lot of the time. But after that, it's truly focusing on, in my case, the client and what it is they want and what it is they need out of their life and career.
Well said. I would say consultants are like, take calculus. I mean, that book was written in 1687, Principles of Mathematica. The answers are there. That's not the problem. You need to study it and learn, and you need a teacher to help you learn calculus. I mean, you know what to do. The answers are there. You need help studying the data and learning calculus. And you're going to have to sit in a library. You're going to have to sit with a consultant. You're going to have to get a math teacher, and you're going to have to figure this out. And your problems, and all your problems, your first 10 years, once you figure out that, the definition of success is that you have all new problems. Yeah. And if you still have the same problems 30 years after you started, you're not a very good student. And the sign of success is all new problems, and everything you think's wrong now solve all that, and then you're going to have all new problems, and you just slowly walk up the stairs, and it's all attitude. And congratulations on all you do. I can't believe how many news stories. I mean, my gosh, every time I go to Google News, it's just I mean, it was like 4 or 5 a day. I posted some of them on Dental Town, but I mean, I could have just blew it up all day. You're really a legend. Is it true you were the first practicing dentist to ever do that?
Kerry Middlecoff was a dentist who won he won the U.S. Open. He was a dentist and then quit to play professional golf. I can't remember exactly when.
But you were still practicing.
I can't remember if
he
Middlecoff
wasn't a
was
practicing dentist.
I don't think he was. No,
Yeah, he
I don't
quit
think he was.
dentistry,
Yeah,
and then he went and did it full time. And you were still a practicing dentist.
Yes.
It's got to be dentist's favorite sport.
Yeah. Despite what Twitter says, I am a real dentist. That was a culture shock. I'll tell you what. Like, I walk onto the golf course on that Monday for the qualifier, and as I'm there and playing well, and the scoreboard's updating, my social media is blowing up. There's news stories already just about me being there and being a dentist, and then to win the qualifier, I pick up my phone afterward, and I have 416 text messages. My everything's just been posted all over online. I'm live on the Golf Channel. It's still, honestly, I can't even process what happened that day. The U.S. Open was nuts as well, but just that day, that instant overnight, fame, if you want to call it that, was just it's nothing like I've ever experienced in my life. And I honestly, I had to do a lot of like thinking and processing about that, because as the time's going on, the story and what the media's wanting to talk about, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm trying to prepare for this golf tournament, and it was honestly kind of stressful. And I had to kind of look at it and say, no matter how I play in this golf tournament, I hope I play well, but no matter how I play, I want to represent a lot of different people with what I'm doing. I want to make a lot of different people proud. I want to make the dental profession proud. I want to make the city of Pittsburgh, where I grew up, proud. I want to make Indianapolis proud, where I'm from. I want to make my patients proud. I want to make my family proud. I want to make my team at the practice proud. So I felt like no matter what was going on, I wanted to make everybody proud, and I wanted to show people, and I still do that now in sharing my message with you. And honestly, I try to incorporate this through TLP. Like, I want to share with people that you can accomplish, if there's something you want to accomplish in your life. You want to be a great golfer. You want to be a great woodworker. You want to be literally the best dad ever. Whatever it is you want to accomplish in your life, you can probably do it. Now, we all start off in different places. We all have certain commitments and things that have to take precedence, right? We have family commitments. We have unavoidable things like health and those types of things with ourselves and our loved ones. But you can generally do something if you want to in your life, but it requires sacrifice, and it requires intentionality, and it requires knowing that what other people think about it requires knowing that other people's opinions of what you're trying to do not matter. And before I have a kid, it just, not to keep talking about myself, but before we have my daughter Charlotte, my wife and I are recently married, and I'm growing my practice, and I'm working at my practice, and then I'm going straight to the golf course to play and practice until dark, a lot of weekday nights. My wife understood how important it was to me. She understood the love of the game and competition and wanting to pursue something that was important to me. She was all for that. But a lot of people said, why are you doing this? Why would you be at the golf course until 9:30 and then go to bed and go work at your practice? Like, why would you do that? And my answer to them now, as I look back on it, is, doesn't matter what you think about why I'm doing it. I know it's important to me, and that's really all that matters. So I just want I want people to feel that in their own lives. And honestly, the messages and the support and the notes about people feeling inspired and realizing that they can still accomplish things, whatever phase they are in their life, if they want to pursue something or try something new or whatever it is, those messages have been really cool. And to be in the golf tournament was amazing. It's something I'll never forget, but to have made an impact on people in that way, it's extremely rewarding. And I didn't know how rewarding it would be until I got a chance to kind of step back now and process it all. So it's I truly feel blessed. I'm very, very grateful and honestly excited for what's to come, just for everything in my life. And it's a dream come true, honestly.
It was a dream come true for every dentist on Dental Town. I mean, you see threads, bad stuff, bad news, and then Matt Vogt, and it's like, my gosh, it's been so much fun for the whole dental community watching you for the last several months. But on that note, I'm going to let you go, and thank you so much for all that you've done for dentistry and Dental Town. And bump that thread. I want to know which one it was. I want to reread that whole thread, thinking about how that impacted you. And if you ever want to come back on, we'll do it again someday.
I'd love to. Thank you, man. I mean, like, seriously, I have learned so much from Dental Town over the years. I would not be where I'm at in my career and by extension my life without Dental Town in the forum. So thank you.
Well, I really appreciate it. You won't believe what's cooking under the deal. I mean, we started a year and a half ago. I mean, I finally realized, I rode that social media revolution. Amazon went public in '94, and I was so dumb. I couldn't figure out this internet and AOL, and I had to get AOL for my kids' homework. It took me from '94 to '98, where I said, oh my God, I could start a website, post an x-ray, and ask another dentist, what the hell's wrong with this? All selfish. I just wanted it for me. And I thought, oh my God. And I started Dental Town. 25 years later, that whole social media curve's flying. And then it was about 2 years ago, my oldest son, I have 4 sons, and one of them got a computer degree and was working for these big companies doing this. And then ChatGPT came out. And he showed me this AI. This is, ChatGPT is not even 2 years old. And he says, Dad, you have 1 million threads with 10 million posts. You have 650 online CE courses. You got 1,600 podcasts with transcripts. We can wrap, and then we downloaded all 70,000 articles from PubMed that had anything to do with dentistry. And we said we could put all that into a large language model, and you could ask it any question, and it'd give you the answer. And so we started working on it, and we realized, man, this website was all written 25 years ago with HTML and C++, and it needs to be rewritten in Python. And it was so cool because after 6 months, he said to me, we can't put lipstick on a pig. I mean, it's a 25-year-old website. We would have to rewrite the whole thing from scratch. And I said to myself, just like Eric Smith is like, well, yeah, you could retire. I sold my practice at 60 and I'm 62. So I just sold my practice and I was all retired. And it's like, yeah, I could just ride out into the sunset, but who the hell wants to do that? So we decided to start from scratch and rewrite the entire damn website line by line. And we've been on that for 18 months, and it's coming pretty damn soon. I mean, I'm using it every day, and it's about so sooner rather than later you're gonna go to Dental Town, and it's gonna be. I mean, it's mind numbing, and just mind-numbing. So, yeah, you could always be, and that's what you got to say to your practice. Your practice can always be better. You can always improve, and start with yourself. But thanks for all you do, Matt, and have a great day.
Thanks, Howard. Cheers.